Going to get started here and we can start talking. If everybody would go up top right hand corner and go to speaker view and then mute yourselves, we will get going. My name is Don Flood. I'm one of the board members of Preservation Mirage, and we're here today with Adele Cygelman. Adele is the writer of an amazing book on Arthur Elrod that we'll be discussing today. And she's a longtime writer and editor, and she's covered interior design, architecture, and real estate for numerous publications, including Architectural Digest and the Robb Report. She's also the author of probably the quintessential Palm Springs book, Palm Springs Modern. If you don't have it, you should get it. And it's an amazing book. It's 22 years old, and I still think is probably the best book ever done on Palm Springs. So that's that. Still available, as is her Elrod book. So I would like to welcome Adele. And Andrea Abbott, could you mute yourself so you come on? You're on my screen. Is she on everybody's screen or just mine?
My name is Rick Sherwood, and I was wondering, Don, if you could talk a little bit maybe about the organization and how long it's been in existence. I'm a new participant, and maybe just fill us in on what the organization is all about.
We're an organization that's about 4 years old. It was founded by Melissa Ritchie, who was our president until a few months ago when she and her husband left for England for a year. And Dan Swartz is our current president. We're founded with the intention of trying to call attention and help to preserve the incredible architecture of Rancho Mirage. Palm Springs has always gotten all the acclaim as far as architecture goes. But as anybody who's been around Rancho Mirage knows, there's an incredible wealth of architecture here. And we're trying to help preserve that architecture and trying to help keep it from getting bastardized or demolished. The worldwide preservation movement. Stephen Price could probably help me a little bit more. But when the Maslin House on Tamarisk Country Club was knocked down in 2003, that gained worldwide attention for a Richard Neutra masterpiece being knocked down, and since then people have become a lot more conscientious and conscious of great architecture everywhere. And so what we try to do is we try to call attention to great. Oh, look at there it is. We try to call attention to great architecture, and we try to keep from going away. It happens more than you think. I was on my golf cart on Monday, and there's a small William Cody house on Tamarisk Country Club, and there was a bulldozer taking half of it down. So there's always something for us to watch out for and try to protect. So I'm going to turn over to Adele now, since we're up and running. And everybody, if you would, hold your questions to the end. Adele's going to give a presentation, and then we'll have time for questions with her. So without further ado, here is Adele.
And Adele, just let me know when you want next. Just say next, and I'll give you the next slide.
Okay, so I can't control it. You have to do it from your end, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, my apologies. This is just obviously I'm like, D- in tech skills. But thank you to everyone at Preservation Mirage for inviting me to do this and having my techie back. As most of you know, I've been on a mission for the last few years to shift the conversation away from mid-century modern architecture and toward interior design. And who better to focus on than Arthur Elrod, who was the leading force in interiors in the Palm Springs area from 1954 to 1974. So let's get started. Let's go to the first image. This is his beginning. He was born on a farm in Anderson, South Carolina. He attended Clemson College, now Clemson U, where the options were studying agriculture or textiles, and he chose textiles, which obviously held him in good stead. He escaped, couldn't wait to get out, and no one knows why, but he came to Los Angeles around 1945, 1946 to take a class at the Chouinard Art Institute. And that's the photo of him in his early, no, sorry, go back one sec. That's a photo of him in his early 20s at Chouinard. And it was a school that was around the corner from Bullock's Wilshire. I'm convinced that while he was taking this interior design class that he worked at Bullock's Wilshire, which explains why. And let's go to the next slide, please. In 1947, he arrives in Palm Springs to work as a junior decorator at the brand new Bullock's department store. There was a home department on the second floor, and he started getting a lot of press immediately in the Villager and Palm Springs Life and started to get a lot of recognition. Stayed there for about 6 years. And then next, in 1952, he heads up to San Francisco and works at W&J Sloan, which is the big furniture emporium with branches across the country. And it is here where he meets Hal Broderick, who would become his personal partner for about 10 years and business partner forever, and a woman named Barbara Wills, who was in the modern furnishings department. He was selected to build and design an exhibit at the San Francisco Museum of Art for General Electric, and they wanted to display all of their new inventions in lighting, including the first recessed ceiling lights and dimmers. And it was a very complicated display that he built. It was a lesson in how to combine lighting with furniture and art. It was also the first place where the British designer T.H. Robs John Gibbings debuted his line of modern furnishings. And tucked at the very back, out on the penthouse patio out there, is a piece by Ruth Asawa. And Elrod was an early promoter of her work and an early supporter of many artists. So next, please. So the three of them, Arthur Elrod, Hal Broderick, and Barbara Wills, in 1954, come to Palm Springs to open Arthur Elrod Limited at 886 North Palm Canyon Drive, which is currently home to A La Mode. And I think if you go in and buy a big expensive piece of furniture, Jimmy and Miguel will show you the back room, which is probably the only thing left of the showroom as it was originally. There aren't many photos left. There are very few photos of the windows, which I was always surprised at. So this is really the only photograph of his first showroom. They were the exclusive representatives for Widdicombe and Baker Furniture. And Hal Broderick relates how one day they got a call from Widdicombe asking them to go help arrange furniture for a couple. They had donated a whole bunch of furniture to this couple in Thunderbird Country Club. Let's go to the next slide. And for those of you who are familiar with Rancho Mirage, know that the couple turned out to be Lucille Bull and Desi Arnaz. The next slide, please. And this is their low-slung ranch house designed by Paul R. Williams. The color on this slide is not great. Obviously, the rocks aren't purple, but it gives you a sense of the living room and the furnishings that Widdicombe, that Robs John Gibbings furnishings, that Arthur Elrod and Hal Broderick arranged for them. I think everyone's surprised to see wall-to-wall carpeting in the desert, but remember that the season was November, December through about April when it's chilly at night, and so carpeting was very prevalent. And then if you swivel around, let's go to the next slide, please. from the living room, you were looking toward the dining room and the outdoor terrace. So it's very, this is a vacation home. It's not heavily furnished. It's just simply and functionally furnished. Next. So here's an ad for Bigelow carpets that was a line carried by Arthur Elrod. And here they are, photographed in front of that rock fireplace. So I can only surmise that not only was all of their furniture donated, but the carpets were also donated. I guess, great early celebrity endorsements. Next. Here is their kitchen. Now, I had no idea, but kitchen designers was a job description. There were specialized kitchen designers working in the mid-50s. This house was completed in 54, 55. So this is really a very advanced kitchen. Elrod always used up-to-date appliances, St. Charles cabinetry. You can see a built-in rotisserie on the left-hand side there. Next. A year later, Elrod was furnishing Lucy and Desi's house in Beverly Hills on Roxbury. It turned out that Lucy and Arthur shared the same birthday, August 8th, and they were lifelong friends. There aren't many personal notes or any personal correspondence in the archive, but this is from the guest book from Southridge. And here's what Lucy signed: Arthur, King Arthur, you and your house are too much. Love, Lucy. And that was for the house on Southridge. Okay, next. So let's see, we're 1957. This is the house for Sydney and Rachel Charney at Tamarisk Country Club. Wexler and Harrison architects. This is very different. This is a much lighter steel and glass pavilion. This is the front door that was described as red amber. We see this beautiful ribbed effect. And just inside, there's a sort of decorative light fixture in the planter. And when you walked in, you would make a left. And let's go to the next slide. And you would be looking at the living room. I've tried to find photos that I was not able to use in the book. This was taken from the LA Times, and thankfully we have some color photographs to, give us a sense of what it looked like. As much as I love black and white photography, when you're talking about interiors, it just makes the biggest difference in the world when you can see something in color. Custom white carpet, sheer white drapes by Webb Textiles. That painting above the bookcase was done by Reg Acker, who was Elrod's first assistant. Blue terrazzo floors, marble fireplace. Next. And the next shot of the living room. Now we're looking toward, this is walnut paneling. You can see the pass through to the kitchen. And then at the end is you can see through into the dining room. Let's take the next one and we'll take a closer look at, there's the dining room. And I never realized until I was really looking at this photograph that there was a sliding, almost like a shoji screen that closed the dining room off. And that there's a finial wall unit. And that there were two tables because everyone really loved flexibility of having a table for dining, but then also since everybody played cards, it was important to them to have the option of having two tables.
For a second, Adele, excuse me for a second.
Yeah.
Barclay, could you mute your screen, bottom left?
I beg your pardon.
Don't worry. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Let's go to the next one. Okay, another chance to look at a color photograph of the master bedroom with those louvers that were there to provide ventilation, but it said ventilation into the hallway, which I thought was kind of odd. But anyway, a dark paneled wall. That's one side of the master bedroom. And the next one, please. So there were 3 enclosed patios, one off the master bedroom, one off the master bathroom, and one off the sort of den. I think must be the den because it was described as having a reflecting pool, which you can see outside the room. And next one. And of course, this is my favorite feature where you have your built-in barbecue overlooking the fairways, and that must have had an ice chest at the end because of that lovely plaid ice bucket. And next, it's the final photo of in color again, which really gives you a sense of the sort of colorings that were being used then of the pool area, which had a gas fire pit. Okay. Let's go to the next one. This was an ad from 1959 by Don Cameron, who was the realtor out in Rancho Mirage. And I'm going to try to stick mainly with Rancho Mirage projects just to, give you a sense of what he did out there. I don't know what house this is. And if anyone does know, Melissa or anyone there, I would love to get some ID on this. But it was 30 acres with this beautiful house on it and stables and orchards. And it was listed, this is the late 50s, for $285,000, which is a huge amount of money for then. And I don't know, I was just like fascinated. Again, if anyone has any info, I would appreciate it. So obviously at this point, Arthur Elrod's career is paralleling the rise in real estate and developments, and he's working with all of the architects in town and all the developers, the Alexanders, Joe Pauling, Jack Meiselman. Let's go to the next one, please. He's doing all his firm, I don't think he's doing it personally, but his firm is doing all of the furnishing, all of the model units and modeled apartments. And this is one for Desert Braemar, which they built in Palm Springs and opened to the public before they actually broke ground out in the, further out in Rancho Mirage. And you can see it's very simple. His work was really all over the map, from the great grand estates to these model units. And at this point, he had about 6 to 8 people working for him. But we're going to go to the next one, because this is one of my all-time favorites of his. And this is the clubhouse at El Dorado Country Club in Indian Wells. And this opened in 1959. So we're rounding out the 1950s with what to me is one of William F. Cody's greatest triumphs, and Elrod's interiors just really matched his work without having to do too much. Next. Now this is the front lounge. You can see how Cody's details are just fabulous, and all Elrod had to do was bring in some low slung furniture. And what fascinates me in this is that the angle of the sofa's chair, the backs of the sofa, matches the angle in the screen block right behind it that Cody designed. And here you're looking directly into the dining room. Let's go to that one. Again, Cody's fabulous light fixtures. You've just got this expansive glass overlooking the fairways, and Elrod just brings in for the dining room, just brings in really simple but elegant chairs and table settings. Next. This is the ladies' lounge. And next. Here's the men's. And again, look at the fabulous details with Cody's work. You don't need to do much with it. You just need to be able to complement what Cody is doing on this. And I think the two of them worked marvelously well together. This is one of my favorite all-time projects. Okay. Next. So Elrod, at this point, he's writing articles for the Los Angeles Time Home magazine, which came out every Sunday. He's got editing the desert living section in the Palm Springs Villager and then Palm Springs Life. He's being featured in Home magazine from like 1955 on, countless covers. He's designing when they decide to build an actual physical home, he builds two of them, one with Edward Fickett and one with Richard Dorman. So he's just, you know, a sort of one-man PR machine. A couple of covers from one 1958 and this one, the other one is 1962. You can kind of see a shift in the color palette between the decades. And let's go to next. He's also participating in every designer show house, both in Palm Springs and in Los Angeles. Left is a lanai he built for the Palm Springs. It was at the Pavilion where they held the annual sort of designer showcase. On the right is an installation he built for US Rubber down at the Convention Center in LA. And this was all Naugahyde. This was like that sort of brief moment in the 60s when Naugahyde was fashionable and everyone thought it was going to be, you know, the next thing instead of leather. So this entire room, the fireplace wall, the carved niches, the carpet, and the sofa, everything was covered in Naugahyde. Let's go to the next one. I love this because Elrod was the ultimate modernist in that he was always curious about new materials and new techniques. And this was the first time a single slab sink had been created. And it was made of, let me get my notes here. I just want to make sure I have it correct. Polyester resin mixed with minerals with two different, you know, sink bowls. You could customize the shapes of the bowls and you could have, it could come in 12 colors. But this was the first time that this had been introduced into the marketplace. And one of his associates, Bob Hammerschmidt, created the Naugahyde, again, wallpaper, the wall covering with the bamboo pattern. So let's go to the next one. Now we're shifting into the 60s. You can see to the left, you can see the wall of his old showroom at 886 North Palm Canyon Drive. Then there's a parking lot. And then this is their new showroom and studio at 850 North Palm Canyon Drive. The building has recently been sold. I hope they bring back those grills on either side. It was a very simple rectangle. Most of his buildings were simple rectangles. He didn't use an architect for this. He used Bill Foster for most of his construction, who was a local contractor. And the building looks pretty much the same apart from those grills. It still has that beautiful hammered steel door in the center. And you just have to be very careful when you go in the summer because that handle is boiling hot. But if we go to the next slide, you'll see why those grills, see how the effect that it had on the interior. Again, you usually see the interior of this studio in black and white. It's just such a great pleasure to see it on the cover of Home magazine in color. The walls were of this rough hewn wood. That's an Andy Nelson painting on that back wall. Andy Nelson was one of his favorite artists. He used him everywhere. And at this point, they no longer handled Widdicombe or Baker. He had moved on to McGuire, Wicker Works, some Vladimir Kagan. And then the majority of their furnishings right now were being custom designed by a handful of sources, and many of whom are still in business today. Let's go to the next one. You can see this is exactly the same shot in black and white. There's that Andy Nelson painting. Here you have Elrod at the left, William Reiser in the center, and Mari Williams, the wife of E. Stewart Williams. They're probably discussing plans for the new Palm Springs Desert Museum, as it was then known, because Mari was on the board of trustees. William Reiser had come out in the mid-60s to work with Elrod after working for Raymond Loewy, the industrial designer, for many years in New York. And Bill took on a lot of the production of their carpets, especially with Edward Fields. And he pretty much stayed in New York, kept his apartment, and would come out to Palm Springs occasionally and would stay in Southridge. So next one. I love showing these because, again, they give you a sense of the lightness and the airiness of the front part of the studio. And here is Mari's daughter, Mari Ann, goes by Marianne Pasqualetti, who worked for Elrod after she graduated from college. She worked there from 68 to 1970, right when they had moved in, and just after they had hired a young Steve Chase, and she became the assistant to Steve Chase. And on the left, you can see, this is the only photograph I've ever found, whereas the doorway leads back into their offices. So the desk that you see would have been for the secretary. And I've long heard the description of the individual principal's offices, but I've never, ever seen any photos of them. So that's sort of part of my holy grail of photos that I hope to find one day. But I just love how light-filled this is and how airy it all is. Okay, next. So now we head to Tamarisk West. So from about the mid-60s to the mid-70s, Elrod's firm decorated about 20 of these units. And thankfully, they published about 6 pages of them. This is in House and Garden in April 1969. If anyone is interested, I highly recommend you get this issue. They do have the main images I'm just showing at the top belonged to Irving and Ida Kay. There are smaller images on the bottom of other units and how they decorated it, but the images are too small to show. So I just want to concentrate on the top photo. And here you can see the Kay's atrium. And what they did was cover the left half of it in a sort of mesh screen for insect control. And then on the inner part, they have these louvers that provided them with shade. Let's go to the next one. This is one of my favorite photos. I just love this. You know, so when you've got like condominiums and they're all pretty much, they have the same floor plan. The whole point of this feature was to show how the different units were furnished. And I love this ribbed wood. You know, look how much life it gives to this room. An Andy Nelson painting. You can see the Arco lamp, sort of a classic piece that Elrod used. And then to the right of the Arco lamp is the doorway covered in wood. That was the door that led into the bedrooms. And then at the far right, you can see the atrium. In the foreground, you can see a little corner of the bar. So let's go to the next shot. So the Kays, sorry. They must have loved their color. This is the other side of the living room. You can see on the left, you've got some bookshelves and magazine rack. You've got the bar in the middle with the same similar kind of wood paneling. It's painted with a scarlet ceiling. The kitchen behind it is scarlet. The dining chairs are lacquered scarlet. And that painting is yet another Andy Nelson work. Next, please. Love this too, lime green. This is one of the guest rooms. And the headboards were based on a tic-tac-toe game. Next. And this is the master bedroom. it's not even a 4-poster bed. I don't know what you call this, because the posts, which are mirrored columns, go literally from the floor all the way up to the ceiling. There's no canopy. And you've got these tie-back drapes on either side. Here you can see on the bottom of this a little bit more of how other people have decorated the same room, but I think the K's take the cake for their unit. Okay. So now we're like in the late 1960s. And this is the what was the Hyatt Von Den House by Howard Lapham. And it was redone by Elrod for his clients Roy and Alta Woods. Usually what happened was people would come to the desert and have Elrod design their vacation home first and then go back to their principal home and redo that. This they twisted around. He first decorated the Woods residence in Oklahoma City, and then they asked him to come out, and he had 4 months to redo this house and expand it. And it's at 10,000 square feet, was larger than their main residence. They added a new entryway, which I unfortunately don't have a good photo of. Let's go to the next photo. We're going into the living room. And what they did was they balanced very subdued palette for the family's living areas, and with a very wowie zowie palette for the entertainment rooms. And you can see in the back there is the bar and game room. Let's go to the next slide, because hold on to your hats, because it's like zap, pow, it's all red and lacquered black. It's those red upholstered Pierre Paulin chairs. You've got black lacquered cabinetry at the back, zebra patterned bar. We won't talk about the tiger lying on the floor, but this is just this unbelievable, like high energy, high octane decorating with these saturated colors that by the late 60s Elrod was using everywhere. Let's go to the next. And then we go back to the more sort of soothing, neutral tones for the dining room. Pecky cypress on the walls. Again, 2 tables for that flexibility of eating and or playing cards. Custom lacquered and chrome dining tables, and custom Edward Fields carpet. Okay, next. This is Alta Woods' closet. One of my favorite anecdotes by Hal Broderick was that she had her staff drive out from Oklahoma to the desert with an air-conditioned trailer that had all of her clothes so that they didn't get wrinkled. She wore her outfits once, and when they were finished, when she was finished, they went back into the trailer and they went back to Oklahoma. Next, please. Here is one side of her bathroom with this sort of psychedelic pattern on the wall. And next. Here is his bath. And the front there is it was a special shaving section for Roy Woods with those sort of theatrical light bulbs. Then it went back to a shower and bathtub. And then you went out into a sunning garden. Next. And here you have what to me is one of the first photos I've ever seen of a home gym. You've got the treadmill on the left. You've got the bench and barbells, TV, phone and chair for when, I guess, when you're done exercising. But I think, like I said, yeah, this is one of the first home gyms I've ever seen from this period. Next. So the exterior was, the grounds were extensive. Here you have the pool, a lower pool level, black terrazzo surrounding the pool. There was a lower marble floor for dancing and a raised platform for an orchestra. Warren Plattner furnishings covered in acacia yellow, which was one of Elrod's favorite colors, very sunny, happy color. And next. And then another area by the tennis courts with a bar and everything furnished in red. I guess it helped if, you know, color coding everything in case you got lost wandering around the grounds. Next. This is one of my favorite projects. This is the Roundhouse. It was done for a couple named Joseph and Wiki Dennis, built by a developer named Ross Patton. They had such an incredible view from up in, this is in Thunderbird Heights, as was the Woods house, that they decided that having a roundhouse would give them access to, you know, 180-degree views. And that's what they've got. So you're looking at the front door in the center there. Let's take the next one. And now you're inside with the front doors on the left-hand side with that beautiful sort of bluish, opaque mosaic glass on either side. 90-foot diameter house. There were, everything was supported by these steel beams that come out in a radius from the center. You've got the fireplace, and behind it is mirrored glass so that you're looking at a reflection, standing at the bar looking, and it's reflecting back at you as the view. Wiki Dennis played piano. So there were two pianos, like a piano and an organ in the house. You can see one white one there. Her favorite colors were off-white and cobalt. So that's what Bob Hammerschmidt, who was Elrod's associate, and that's how he furnished it. That was his color scheme. Let's go to the next one. So here you get a better sense of how those steel beams come out and radiate out from the center of the home. You can also see sort of how the rug, the pile of the rug goes flat and high, and it's really reflecting the pattern of the ceiling. Let's go to the next one. Here's a photograph of the dining room with a custom painting by Georgia Mclean and one of Elrod's custom consoles. Some of the time he lifted them off the ground to sort of float, but all of them were meticulously built and designed. Many of them had speakers built into them at either end, shelving for silverware, and everything just meticulously planned. And the next one. And this was described as a grape and acid lime kitchen. So this sits in the hub of the house. This is in the center of the house, with these fabulous clerestories above to let in the light, and everything custom made to fit into this round house miraculously. And I just wish we would go back to this kind of color combination in kitchens. So next. And again, one of my favorite photographs. So they built a 24-foot sort of miniature version of the house, reached by these steps that went across this pool. And the couple called it the gin room. This is where they went to play games, cards, gin rummy, bridge, whatever. I've never seen a photograph of the actual close-up interior of this, but the tables were in aqua blue and the chairs were upholstered in yellow. And I think this is just one of those most magical rooms ever created. You're just sort of floating on the water. How great to have been there. Okay, next one, please. Okay, so we can't end without showing Southridge. 1966 is when Elrod approached John Lautner, the architect, and asked him to, build him something appropriate for this boulder-strewn lot. I have no idea why Arthur Elrod chose John Lautner. I surmise that he really just wanted something unique and spectacular. And that's what he got. From here, you can see this is the entry to the carport, which is on your left. You've got the black slate that flows all the way into the house. It starts at the curb. It goes all the way in a herringbone pattern. You can see the raised panels, the copper panels over the round living room. And the view over the desert. It's just, this is in its early phase. Later on, a lot of the foliage grew up and camouflaged it. But you can also see in the center the bronze gate on a pivot that Lautner designed. Let's go to the next one. So here's the one section of the living room, 60-foot diameter.
Wow.
It gives you a sense of how in the center was a circular Edward Fields rug. Semicircular Martin Bratrod, you've got the sofa with its back to you. And then across from it is a bench with no back so that nothing interrupts the view. You've got Pierre Paulin chairs. All of these upholstered in Jacqueline or Larson fabric, which is stretched completely taut. There are no seams, nothing to interrupt the flow of the furnishings. A lot of accessories, lucite accessories by Charles Hollis Jones. In the foreground on the right, you can sort of see part of the dining chairs and the black dining table. We'll take a closer look at that in a minute. And in the corner, there is a sort of a reading nook with Italian chairs and the Arco lamp that he had. Next. This is a different angle again from a newspaper that I just wanted to show because it just gives you a different view of this mitered glass, which sort of, this is how it was originally. You can see how it zigzags around the outside of the room. And then below it is the sort of semicircular shaped pool. And when I kept staring at this photo, I realized that this part of the living room really just consists of two colors, variations on sand and variations on blue from the sky and the pool. And that's all it was, very controlled, and I think just a supremely successful use of how not to fight the elements. It's just reflecting the desert that stretched out before him. Let's go to the next one. So here you have another better view of the dining area, the fireplace that's lit. One of his buffets at the right, a piece by Melvin Schiller, who he collected, a sculptor whose work he really admired. The ceiling on this side of the room is at its lowest. So that makes it perfect for nighttime with the fireplace glowing. Let's get to the next one, and I think you'll get a better idea of how it looked at night. Very dramatic. This Paul Jenkins artwork was stretched on that wall of, it's called Corporeal Wood. We're going to see it more in the master bedroom. But you can see how that slate floor is still going in that same pattern all the way through. It goes into the kitchen, which is behind that painting, behind that curved wall is the kitchen. You can see above the wall, you can sort of see a reflection of glass, which enclosed the kitchen. So let's go to that photo. St. Charles cabinetry, the Corporeal wood again on the top part and laminates on the bottom. Double oven, built-in broiler, side-by-side fridge and freezer. All his kitchens were, I would say, you could pretty much move into them and live in them today, absolutely. And there's the herringbone slate. So it went from the curb all the way through the living room and into the kitchen. Okay, let's do next. So usually when we see the bedroom, we're looking at the other direction. We're looking at that day bed and out through the rocks. So I thought I would show this photo. At the left, you can see the doors are closed. So that's how you closed off the doors to the living room. This corporeal wood lined the inside, woven goat hair carpet on the floor, redwood ceiling. This becomes a much more private cocoon-like space than the living room. It has a very, very different feel to it. A fireplace with shelving, the Plattner chairs. And you can see the rock here that Lorna incorporated into his design. And I think everyone's pretty familiar with the house as it looks from an architecture point of view. So I was just trying to focus more on the interior features. If we go to the next one. So the room is about 60 feet long. It's really sort of one long rectangle. And in the middle of it, in the front here, you see a desk. And on the desk is it's a framed photograph of who knows who, because Elrod rarely had anything personal out. So it's just, I thought was quite charming to see a photograph of a young boy, whoever he
Luckily,
would
she
be.
still has one.
This is the Lautner house.
It's Claudia. Okay. Oh, he's right. He's on the bed.
Beverly Weinstein,
Beverly.
Beverly Weinstein, could you please mute?
So what you're looking at is the desk ends, and then there's a headboard. And on the other side of that desk is the headboard. And what I find fascinating is most of us would have positioned the bed in the middle of the room facing right, facing toward the view. But what Elrod chose to do was face the bed toward the wall, which he covered in a mirrored glass. And he's looking at the view from the reflection. And on that mirrored glass, he hung an Andy Nelson painting. So you can see the bed reflected, and you can see the nightstand to the right-hand side. He had books there. He had a notebook. I wish I knew what happened to all of his personal stuff. Everyone believes that Hal Broderick just threw everything out after Elrod's death, which is such a shame because there is nothing personal of his. And to the left is the doorway that leads into the bathroom. Let's go take a look at that. So once the house was published, it was published in Home Magazine and House and Garden, then Architectural Digest, Palm Springs Life. It just started this whole avalanche of press for Arthur Elrod. And Time and Newsweek and Playboy, they all came calling. So for whatever reason, I don't think I'll ever understand why, but he chose to be featured naked in his tub for Time magazine in 1971 for a feature called How the Other Half Bathes. And it's taken me a long time to unravel this photograph. So what you're looking at is on the left-hand side is a mirror with two hooks for his bathrobe. And in that mirror is reflected his closet and Gaetano Pesce's up chair and round ottoman. And then next to it is an actual vanity next to the whirlpool tub. So I hope that makes sense. And outside, everything was planted. It was completely private. He had a bamboo grove outside, but there was no one looking in anyway. So no need for any drapes, I guess. Okay, let's go to the last image. So Leland Lee, these were, one of Leland Lee's greatest shoots, looking at the pool. You can see next to the flared column, you can see a door. That's how, a metal frame door, that's how you came out onto the terrace. the original flared column, which I just love. It's just so sexy. The pool, the Miller Fong's lotus chairs. Everything about this house was perfect. I think everything about his career was modern. He was a pure modernist. He faced forward. He faced the future with open arms and a martini. And I think that his influence was so profound, not just in the desert, but across the country as well. He took desert modernism and spread the gospel across the US. And unfortunately, his life was cut short in February 1974, but his legacy lives on. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Adele. That was fantastic. It's amazing how incredibly modern it all still looks. It really, I mean, you could show that as something that was just done today. And I think people would respond really positively to it. Have you been in the house, in the Southridge house? Do you have any idea what the new owner is doing to it?
I haven't been in it since the mid-90s when Ron Burkle owned it. But yes, I've been in touch with the new owner and his design team. And oh my God, they've recreated the Edward Fields rug and the Brattrod sofas, and it looks amazing.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah, very exciting.
Fantastic. Okay, we're going to open this up for questions. So if anybody has a question, raise your hand. I'll call on you, and then just go to your bottom left and unmute, and you can ask your question. Anybody have any questions? Nobody?
Well, thank you anyway, because I'm so sorry that we got off to such a silly, techie, bumpy start. I apologize.
I thought it was fantastic and so great to see everything.
Hi, this is Kevin Mee. Just one quick question for Adele. First, thank you. Nice job. Really appreciate the presentation. The 30-acre estate that you had presented that nobody seems to know sort of the history behind it. Do we know geographically where that, whereabouts that was actually situated?
I think it says in the ad, it was like between Thunderbird and Tamarisk Country Clubs. And I think that's all that it says.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. And like I said, I wish I could locate what it is, because it was a huge parcel of land and obviously a big estate.
Yeah.
Adele, do you have any information on what's happening with his house, his prior house in Old Las Palmas? I know that was recently sold.
Yes, and the two guys, I've been in touch with them, and they are doing all of their due diligence. You know, they have to do some work because, you know, for everyone who went to see it lately, you know, we know that there were a lot of underlying issues. There were a lot of water damage and various things that had not been taken care of. So they're going to need to do that, but they have every intention of honoring his vision and his spirit. And I think that it's going to be exciting. I think they're going to take it into the next, you know, to the next phase. I mean, I think there's always this debate about preserving it. It's the last intact interior of his. But the reality is that people have to live in it. And I think he would be the first to fix what no longer works.
Got it. Anybody else with a question? No. All right. Well, we thank everybody. We thank you for your patience in the beginning. We figured it out eventually, and that was a great presentation. We'd like to thank Adele again. Her books, Arthur Elrod, Palm Springs Modern, two books that I look at often. So I highly suggest you get a copy for yourself. And thank you, Adele. It was fantastic.
Okay, and thank you to Carol for being my tech backup.
Okay, and Adele, share really quick where you can buy the book still. I believe it's, you said Just Fabulous, right. Grace Home, and where else?
Destination PSP, H3K Design. They've all been like just wonderful supporters of the book. So yes, please support your bookstores.
Yes, and thank you everyone. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Thanks for figuring that out.
Thank
Yep.
you.